Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Good evening. You're watching Oman News. First, the headlines. On behalf of His Majesty Sultan Qaboos, His Highness Sayyid Fahad bin Mahmoud Al Saeed receives His Excellency the Chairman of the National Federal Council of the United Arab Emirates. Activating friendship committees and discussing auditing systems are part of talks between the Shura Council and Emirati National Federation Council. His Excellency, the GCC Secretary-General, says Gulf Cooperation Council countries have achieved an advanced stage in customs union and Gulf Common Market. And Sultan Qaboos University announces that 6 research projects win a royal finance support of His Majesty the Sultan. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail. On behalf of His Majesty Sultan Qaboos, His Highness Sayyid Fahad bin Mahmoud Al Saeed, Deputy Prime Minister for the Council of Ministers, received in his cabinet today His Excellency Mohammed Ahmed Al Moor, Chairman of the National Federal Council of the United Arab Emirates. He conveyed greetings of the leadership of the United Arab Emirates to His Majesty Sultan Qaboos and their best wishes to His Majesty, the government and the Omani people of continued success. His Highness welcomed the guests and the delegation and praised strong existing relations between the two countries stemming from brotherly ties that bind them. His Highness reviewed Shura experience and the Sultanate and its contribution in the National Work March. On his part, His Excellency the Chairman of the National Federal Council of the UAE praised the level of relations between the two countries, thanks to the wise care by His Majesty the Sultan and the leaders of the United Arab Emirates to achieve aspirations of people of both countries. He expressed his delight and that of his delegation of the visit and the meeting. He acquainted with Sultanate's experience in numerous fields. Talks also covered aspects of existing cooperation and reviewed current issues in the regional arena. The meeting was attended by His Excellency Khalid bin Hilal Al Ma'wali, Chairman of the Shura Council, as well as His Excellency Abdulrida Abdullah Al Khori, United Arab Emirates accredited ambassador to the Sultanate. His Highness Sayyid Fahad bin Mahmoud Al Saeed, Deputy Prime Minister for the Council of Ministers, received also today in his cabinet His Excellency Ahmed, Minister, State of Foreign Affairs of India. His Highness welcomed the guest and his delegation and praised strong existing relations between the two countries and continued joint efforts to upgrade the level of cooperation. They also reviewed current issues in the regional and international arenas. On his part, the minister expressed his delight and that of his delegation of the visit and also expressed his country's appreciation for the Sultanate's achievement under the leadership of His Majesty Sultan Qaboos, besides strengthening relations of friendship and cooperation with the international community. It was attended by His Excellency Sayyid Badr bin Hamid bin Hamoud Al Busaidi, Secretary-General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, as well as His Excellency J.S. McCool, India's accredited ambassador to the Sultanate. His Excellency Mohammed Ahmed Al Moor, Chairman of the National Federal Council of the United Arab Emirates, paid a visit to the Council of Oman and the Royal Opera House, Muscat. More details in the following report by Saif bin Khalfan Al-Kindi.
During the visit, they discussed the strong brotherly relations between the Sultanate and the United Arab Emirates, particularly in the parliamentary field. Dr. Al-Mandri briefed the guest on the collaborative work between the two councils, State and Shura, in terms of committees' work. Meanwhile, His Excellency Khalid bin Hilal Al Ma'wali, Chairman of Shura Council, also received His Excellency Mohammed Ahmed Al Moor, Chairman of the Emirati National Federal Council, and his delegates. Al Ma'wali and Al Moor discussed the ways of strengthening ties in terms of legislatives, and auditing work as part of the new authorities given to the Shura Council. Al-Mawali gave the guest and his delegates a brief about the permanent committee's work that are concerned with studies, research, and revising projects of laws in the Sultanate. Furthermore, the chief guest and his delegates visited the building of Oman Council and were briefed on its facilities and the new techniques used during the debate. They also paid a visit to the Royal Opera House, Muscat, and toured in the different sections in the building. They have been briefed with information on types of programs given to the visitors, including musical and cultural functions and ways of preparing for international concerts. At the end of his visit, His Excellency Muhammad Ahmad Al-Mur, the Emirati National Federal Council Chairman, appreciated the unique, spectacular building of Oman Council that gave a wonderful impression to the visitor with its attractive arches and decorations. He described the council as the biggest building among the Arab parliamentary buildings, as it is an evidence for His Majesty consideration to the importance of this attractive building. Saif Al-Kindi for English News, Muscat.
Gulf Cooperation Council countries had achieved an advanced stage in customs union and Gulf Common Market and currently working on overcoming obstacles that are facing these two issues. In a statement to the Sultanate of Oman Radio and Television, His Excellency Dr. Abdul Latif bin Rashid Al Zayani, Secretary General of the Gulf Cooperation Council, he confirmed that there is a decision by Their Majesties and Highnesses that obstacles should be overcome by May, and these will be forwarded to Their Majesties and Highnesses. Coincidentally, there will be a meeting of Financial Cooperation Committee which will be held in Kuwait on Tuesday and Wednesday to study these issues and submit a report and fix a final situation for customs union. He also added that Gulf Common Market needs more infrastructure and that railway link is going to help in movement of goods and merchandise. His Excellency, the Secretary General of the Gulf Cooperation Council, confirmed that dialogue is still stalled between the two Cooperation Council countries and the European Union regarding free trade agreements, but it started with some other countries, but relations are strong with the EU and a strategic dialogue is continuing between the two sides in numerous programs. The GCC is waiting for them to take a stand that will allow for the talks to continue. Employment, building skills and entrepreneurship is the first workshop of a series of workshops organized by the Secretariat General of the Gulf Cooperation Council countries. In implementation of noble directives of Their Majesties and Highnesses, the leaders of GCC countries with the aim to support youth projects. The opening ceremony was presided over by His Excellency Dr. Abdul Latif bin Rashid Al Zayani, Secretary General of the Gulf Cooperation Council. It also discussed the best ways to provide job opportunities for the GCC citizens, types of skill needed for labor market and a future of entrepreneurship, as well as suggesting means and approaches to encourage the youth to join the private sector. 200 youth and experts from GCC countries took part in the workshop, which focused on the role of media to direct the youth to join the private sector, the convenience of education outputs in the labor market, and directing them towards handicraft and self-employed businesses. Oman Chamber of Commerce and Industry, OCCI, organized a gathering with Singaporean officials. It introduced to the investors a free trade agreement between the Gulf Cooperation Council countries and Singapore. It is considered the first between GCC and the foreign country. His Excellency Saeed bin Saleh Al-Qiyumi, Chairman of the OCCI, said they encouraged Omani businessmen to bridge with the world's countries for direct import. The agreement involved a trade of goods, service, investment, custom procedures, government purchase, and e-trade. The The strategic location of the Sultanate makes it in the center of the trade expansion in the region, and the agreement, which facilitates trade movement between the GCC countries and Singapore, will increase the economic rate through the Sultanate's gate. The Singaporean side believe that the agreement is a real opportunity for the investment between Gulf Cooperation Council countries, especially the Sultanate of Oman, to increase trade exchange between them in all levels. Mr. Lim Yeo King from Singapore Business Federation had this to say.
Important for an exchange of ideas and collaborations between the companies, Singapore companies and Oman companies who has come all the way down from Singapore to explore interactions, explore businesses in the region. So it's also our invitation for the Omani companies to invest in Singapore, to export their goods and services through Singapore. At the same time, also an opportunity for Singapore companies to export their goods and services through Omani companies.
Sultan Qaboos University announced that 6 scientific projects had won a royal finance support of His Majesty the Sultan that came during celebration of the 14th visit anniversary of His Majesty to the university on the 2nd of May 2000. The winning research projects were on assessment of disclosure role at Muscat Securities Market, study predicts achievements of Omani students, study of system sample of expanding study prospects and enhancing school performance, besides using methods innovative molecular to study brucellosis diseases in animals, electronic service quality and detection of candidate genes related to the emergence of a strong ovarian cancer. Still to come in our news bulletin. The number of greenhouses in the Sultanate increased during 10 years to reach 3,700. Welcome back to the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. The number of greenhouses in the Sultanate increased during 10 years to reach 3,700 houses. They contribute in providing various types of agricultural products in the market. The research and development program on greenhouses discussed importance of such projects and further expansion in this field. It also reviewed the problems and diseases that affect crops in greenhouses, as well as the way of prevention. The specialists in this field presented a visual show on necessary materials to be available for soilless agriculture. A number of wilayas of the Sultanate today witnessed rainfalls varied between light and moderate and caused tributaries to overflow. The Governorate of Dakhliya, light to moderate rain fell in the wilayas of Nizwa and Bahla, especially at the Hay Asad, while moderate rain fell in the wilayas of Samail and Adam, as the Niyaba of Jabal al-Akhdar had heavy rains. Light rains fell in the governorates of Al-Brahmi and North Sharqiya. Yesterday, a number of the wilayas also had moderate to heavy rains, causing some wadis and tributaries to overflow. Civil defense and ambulance men were able to control a fire at 5 farms in Madris area of the Wilaya of Sohar. Sources at the Civil Defense and Ambulance Authority said that the fire was ignited in one farm due to the farmer burning agricultural residues, and then the fire extended to the nearby farms by wind factor. Civil defense and ambulance men rushed to the place and were able to put the fire off in a few hours. The authority called on all citizens and residents not to burn any residues in the farms for near trees or closer to flammable substances, especially when wind is strong and temperatures is high. Muscat Securities Market MSM General Index 30 today added 19 points, comprising a rise by 0.29% to close at 6,760 points. The trading value today stood at 5.3 million Omani Riyals, comprising a decline by 23.2% compared to the last session, which stood at 6.9 million Riyals. The report released by MSM pointed out that the market value rose by 0.09% to reach about 14.1 billion Omani Riyals. The report added that the value of shares bought by non-Omani investors reached more than 1.5 million, comprising 29.5%. The value of shares sold by non-Omani investors reached 580,000, comprising 9.5%. And the net non-Omani investment rose by 19.9 to Riyal Oman 1,064,000. The third National Conference for Digestive System and Liver Diseases was held in Nizwa Hospital. More than 150 specialists from medical cadres in the Sultanate participated in the event. It discussed latest methods in diagnosis and treatment of such diseases. A number of scientific researches and studies were presented in the conference that will contribute in providing knowledge and exchange expertise among medical cadres. Under the theme Dialogue Values Granting Achievement, the Ministry of Education, represented in the Directorate General of Muscat, organized an administrative development gathering. It aims to train school administration on the mechanism to deal with challenges in scientific and legal method as per educational regulations and systems. It also aims to link educational reality with educational and administrative development to promote administrative and technical practices in schools. The three-day gathering includes work papers which are meant to achieve professional development of the participants. It discussed managing of students' behavior as well as legal and financial aspects and administrative supervision for school. It also covers proposals in educational environment by the participants who believe such gatherings are an opportunity to strengthen among administrators. The Municipal Council in the Governorate of Dhofar discussed during its fifth meeting in the first period this year the recommendations of a Legal Affairs Committee related to the Endowment Fund. The Council also raised the final reports of the team charged on studying the dangerous crossing in the ways of Marseille, Raihout and Dalhout, and to find the suitable traffic solution. His Excellency Sheikh Salim bin Ofaid Al-Shanfari, Chairman of the Dhofar Municipality, Chairman of Municipal Council, headed the meeting. Now for the general weather forecast. Clear to partly cloudy skies will prevail over the Sultanate. Winds will be northwesterly light to moderate. Seas will be slight to moderate with a maximum wave height of 1.5 meters. This is the Sultanate of Oman television. Before we end tonight's bulletin, here are the main points once again. On behalf of His Majesty Sultan Qaboos, His Highness Sayyid Fahd bin Mahmoud Al Saeed receives His Excellency, the Chairman of the National Federal Council of the United Arab Emirates. Activating friendship committees and discussing auditing systems are part of the talks between the Shura Council and Emirati National Federal Council. His Excellency, the GCC Secretary General, says Gulf Cooperation Council countries have achieved an advanced stage in customs union and Gulf Common Market. And Sultan Qaboos University announces that 6 research projects win a royal finance support of His Majesty the Sultan. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news bulletin. From all of us here at the studio and the newsroom, it's good night.